All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SOC Sidebar, brought to you by the Federalist Society's Student Division and the Federalist Society at Columbia Law School. My name is Coley Hungate, the president of Columbia Law School's student chapter of the Federalist Society. Each month, the student division and a rotating student chapter hosts this Zoom series called SOC Sidebar, where we bring in a judge to be interviewed by a student chapter president to talk about that judge's passion, hobby, or some kind of interest, and how that interest interrelates with the law. Our 12th SOC Sidebar features Judge Britt Grant, who is here to talk about her passion of tennis. Judge Grant serves on the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, and prior to joining the federal bench, she served as a justice on the Supreme Court of Georgia, and also as Georgia's Solicitor General, where she handled major constitutional and appellate matters. She also previously worked in the governor's office in federal and state policy roles, as well as private practice, focusing on complex litigation. A Georgia native, Judge Grant earned her undergraduate degree from the Demon Deacons, Wake Forest University, and her JD from Stanford Law School, where she was the president there of the Stanford Law Federal Society, an active leader in campus programming. She then later clerked for then Judge Brett Kavanaugh on the DC Circuit. At the end of our interview this evening, we'll open the floor for Q&A from the audience. So make sure that you're logged in to Zoom as a participant in the Zoom webinar in order to ask the question. There is a Zoom Q&A feature that will at the bottom of the screen to ask questions. It'll pop up for all of us. And so when we get to your question, I'll just read it aloud for a judge, and she'll answer it in the session. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, Judge Grant.
Yeah,
and maybe
thanks
just to
for
kick
having me.
Absolutely, yeah. And we should kick things off. She just want to talk about how you first got into tennis. When, was it love at first serve, or kind of took some time to get into?
Sure. Well, first, thanks again for having me on here. I think this is a fun new initiative, and I've had lots of friends participate in Sidebar, so I'm glad to have a chance to be on myself. Um, so tennis was definitely more of a slow rally, as they say for me. I played 1 year in eighth grade in a rec league called ALTA, Atlanta Lawn Tennis Association, and I did not play in high school. To play at my high school, or now where my kids go, same school, you have to be practically nationally ranked. So you would have been able to play, but not me. And so I gave up tennis for a while, and then I had the bright idea that however many decades later, that once I was a judge, I was going to have a lot of spare time, and so I could take up tennis. Unfortunately for me, that's not remotely how it turned out. Both the Georgia Supreme Court and the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals are two of the busiest courts in the country, but nonetheless, I really loved getting back into tennis. I loved, hanging out with friends, making new friends, having time on the court when I was thinking about something other than the law, other than, the cases coming up or the opinion I'm working on. So it's really nice just for me to have a brain break and a lot of kind of social outlet to kind of get out there. So I'm stuck with it. I'm still sticking with it. So it's a lot of fun.
Totally. Yeah, I didn't get to it in the intro. I guess I could have introduced it as our shared passion for tennis.
Yeah,
I,
this is
you,
just
you,
tell everybody about you're a little bit my passion at least.
yeah, I don't want to overshadow our guest in any capacity. But the reason I volunteered tonight was I played college basically, or played tennis my entire life growing up. I grew up in Bradenton, Florida. For any tennis fans in the audience might know, that's one of, if not the biggest tennis hub in the U.S. Played in college at the University of Florida, where our team, my last year, won the national championship. Overlapped with Ben Shelton, who's now top five player in the world, and then got to coach some professional players afterwards before coming to law school.
As a
So
Georgia fan, I've decided to let the Florida thing go, but I'm really excited for your tennis success for you as a person. Maybe
yeah,
less
it it
at the University of
it,
Florida, but
it's okay. There, there's no love lost there, but the Georgia tennis trophy room is, I promise you, substantially more filled out than the one at Florida. So you have us there long term. You talked a little bit about the opportunity to play with friends, and kind of get your mind off the law for a few minutes, for a few hours when you're playing. Was that kind of what about tennis kind of hooked you and keeps you coming back, or is there something else that draws you, kind of drew you back to the sport?
yeah, it's a lot of different things. I think that was what got me out there. Kind of some friends, some friends in the neighborhood were playing and needed some new team members. And I really like to do exercise the most when I don't realize that I'm doing exercise. So it's a pretty key way to at least marginally stay in shape or contribute to staying in shape without really noticing it. So that's a lot of fun. And again, I think, learning more. We played doubles in my league. And so I had played, I hadn't really played before. I certainly wasn't good enough to have any strategy in eighth grade. But, over the years with the same team, coaching about the strategy of kind of how you work together on a doubles team, how you notice what's going on the other side and shift and all of that. It's kind of a fun new skill to learn. My husband used to joke when I was at the law firm that I didn't have any hobbies and I needed some hobbies. So I found a few, but tennis has definitely been a good one to kind of use my brain and my athleticism in ways that I don't normally get to.
Yeah. Do you find any of those strategic thinking or like, tactics on the court, or even like the mental, conditioning to stay focused in the match and competing? Like, is there any translation of that to your work on the bench or in the law at all?
Yeah, I think so. You can't in tennis you can't look back too much and or really at all if you're going to play the next point well. And I think that's useful in the judicial life too because you know you're going to frankly on a personal level you're going to agree and disagree with different people a lot about things. And if you're focused on what happened on the last case where you disagreed, it's going to be harder to move forward on the next case where you might agree, or where maybe you can find some common ground. Maybe you can convince the other person. Maybe they can convince you. Um, and so I think, especially in the federal court where you're going to have the colleagues for literally decades. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? I think it's really important to look forward and not back. And I think that's one thing that I focus on in tennis, for sure. And so I think that's a little bit of a piece of it. And two, I think it's important, when in Alta, it's always very social. You have kind of like the home team brings food before the game. You're talking to the other team. And sometimes people can take it way too seriously. All I'm gonna say, we're not at Wimbledon. We're at Sunday afternoon women's tennis in Atlanta. I think we can relax a little bit. So it's also good to kind of try to remember, that everything is not life or death.
Yeah, no, modeling discourse, like we try and do it at FedSoc and our campus events all the time. Can you tell us a little bit more about your Alta team? I think I have on good authority that a couple multiple time city or some kind of
Yeah,
champions. Is that
yeah.
right?
It's been 2 years. So we first won the division championship in 2019 and then again in 2023. We haven't won the whole league championship yet.
Okay.
We had a really good season this season, but then fell off a little bit at the end. So we have a great new coach, maybe my favorite coach we ever had. So we're looking forward to a lot of success in the coming season. But I did discipline myself. I made myself a rule that I would not have a tennis bag for my racket until I had a championship tag to put on it. So for about
Okay.
2 years, I was just walking in and out of the match, just holding my racket, holding my stuff with no bag. I probably had my work bag with, my towel in it and stuff. So once we got that first little bag tag from our division championship, I allowed myself to pick out a tennis bag. So that's
Okay. Well,
fun.
that probably worked in your favor. They probably thought you were a more serious player that way. Like the tell of the tournaments always is you can you have the tennis rackets have that little like V in the neck. You can kind
Oh
of
yeah.
use the handle of one to hold them, and if you see someone like walking around with all the rackets that you're like that person's a serious player. I gotta be worried about
There you
them.
go. The thing I've
Uh,
had to really learn about who's a serious player is I need to beware if there is a woman who looks to be 20, 30, or 40 years older than me and she has knee braces, she's gonna be really good because she's been out there forever. And if she's still playing, it's because if she can get to it, she can hit it directly at my ankles really fast. So I know when I'm gonna have to like try to just place my shots away in order to have any chance of winning. So the knee
yeah,
brace in the older woman is really oftentimes the key to the absolute best players at my level.
yeah. I'll keep an eye out for that. The tennis club I grew up in, we had like the women's 85 and older, like world champion or something, she would come out and
Dude,
play.
I'm
So
telling you, right? People probably
I
underestimated her, but
yeah, I mean, I can't remember if she had a knee brace on, but I also wanted to ask, do you have any like kind of like mental routines or like mental warm ups that you're talking about? If that's the mental conditioning and preparing for matches, kind of like a big part of tennis.
yeah, not really there's definitely less stretching in my ordinary life. So I definitely try to stretch out before a match. But for mental routines, truthfully, not so much because, juggling obviously a busy job and I've got 3 kids. And so ordinarily I'm just trying to get to the tennis court remotely within a few minutes of my match to make sure that we don't forfeit by virtue of me being late. So kind of sometimes coming in on 2 wheels to make sure to get there, but I do once I'm on the court, I do try to, have a friendly start with the other team, but also make sure that I'm, not trying too hard, honestly, because as soon as I try too hard, I'll start making, a lot of hits into the net or kind of the home run that median tennis players are likely to hit. If you're really trying to hit it hard, then it's, sails way past the line. So I just try to relax and play loose and make sure I'm not just trying to kill it.
Yeah. So the competing is the least stressful part of your day compared to the federal bench, I imagine.
Yeah, but I
Um,
will say one thing, the thing that I miss the most about being a lawyer is that when you're a lawyer, you're trying to win, right? You have a side, you're trying to win for your side, you're trying to beat the other side. And so maybe that is something that appeals to me about tennis, because in judging, you're not really trying to win, you're trying to get it right. I mean, sometimes you try to persuade your colleagues, but I don't think of that as winning in the same way. And so maybe it's nice to have an aspect of my life where I get to just flat out try to win again. I think that's something that's missing from the bench.
do you have do you have any kind of an identity as a tennis player on the court? People talk about aggressive baseliner or like coming I guess you're playing mostly doubles. Are you
Yeah.
aggressive at the net and taking your partner's volleys?
Yeah, I
What's your
do
kind of
I do prefer the net, although it's funny, it all depends on what I've been practicing. I took a lot of tennis lessons during COVID
okay?
and got a really good baseline shot, and then I broke my ankle and I couldn't play for a while, and then when I came
Mhm.
back, I'd forgotten how to do the baseline shot, and I haven't had time to I mean, I can do it, right? But it was really good for a while for someone of my level, and it's just I lost my touch, so now I prefer to play the net, and maybe at some point if things ever slow down, I'll get a few more lessons, but I'm not hoping for a pandemic. So if my forehand has to suffer, then I think that's worth it for us to all be in our offices.
Yeah, and keep the global economy moving.
Exactly.
Do you think kind of a funny question? Do you think that play style is like any similarity to like a judicial philosophy of yours, or maybe how might you describe your judicial philosophy as like a playing style?
Sometimes that's kind of a funny question. I love it. I think sometimes if my partner and I are struggling, we'll just say like, okay, here's our strategy. We're just gonna hit it within the white lines, right? And so
Okay.
that's the very most basic. But it's, I think it's important. I try to, in judging, I try to make sure I remember to do what my job is. And not more, frankly. It can be tempting to, you can see things that are really interesting that you might want to write about or you might want to lean in on. But the longer I'm a judge, the more I think it's important to be restrained in the judicial role and not spend a lot of time kind of saying what I think for its own sake. So I guess in that way, my keep it between the lines strategy may carry over between both tennis and judging.
Totally. Bill Belichick famously, do your job, do your job well.
He
Um,
maybe is a different guy now for that, but
Right, right. I'm curious. As someone I had this big tennis background, came to law school, got to work at a firm last summer. I've quickly learned that lawyers really like tennis, and so
yeah,
it's been a good opportunity for me to do some networking, get to play. The I was at the summer in Sullivan and Cromwell in DC, and Jeff Wall was really excited to have me, on the team playing with him.
oh,
Do
that's
you have any
fun.
good
I
stories
met Jeff
about
for a long time. We were at Kirkland together, but I didn't know that he was a tennis player necessarily. So I'll have to get him to hit the court next time he's in Atlanta.
Yeah, half and half is according to him. Do you have any good stories that are like is on that vein of like making a connection, another judge on the court, or any tennis as an opportunity to kind of meet people in the law?
Um, what's funny? I actually try my best at tennis. Not, I mean, obviously my team knows what my job is, but I try my best, like, not to make it a thing necessarily. I like to be, um, if anyone asks what my job is, I usually say like, oh, I'm in the law. Because I don't like it to become a thing. People sometimes, if they find out you're a judge, they start kind of, being extra nice or whatever. And I just want to be a regular Alta player. But my teammates are really funny. Sometimes they'll, when I arrive at practice, again, usually late, somebody will be like, Your Honor, get down here or whatever. So that's always very funny. And there's a great family lawyer on my team who is originally from Russia, and hearing her um, enthusiastic yells, she is definitely like a McEnroe style, like a very passionate player. And so I'm not going to imitate Dina's excited exclamations on here. Some of them are not safe for work anyway, but it's a lot of fun to, I think for her too, to kind of take it easy after, family laws can be really stressful. You see a lot of tough situations and a lot of, different personal problems. And so I think it's a great outlet. So it's been fun, frankly, to get to know better somebody who's in a just completely different area of the law. Obviously, family law is not remotely federal. I guess sometimes we have ICARA cases, international kind of child abduction allegations, but beyond that, there's not really any family law. So it is a nice way to meet people who are involved in different parts of the law for sure.
Yeah. Are you insistent on getting like other clerks or people in on the 11th Circuit in Atlanta to get out there with you, or?
Not necessarily with me, because I don't know what you find, but I find that it's really important that who you're playing with is at the same level as you. It's just a lot more fun for both people. And, I could have never, one of my clerks last year was a really good tennis player, and it would have been probably miserable for me and him to play together because he wouldn't have tried very hard and it would have been obvious. And, he wouldn't have been, if he'd done his best, he would have aced me every time and then we would have gone home. So I think it's great to find people that you're the same level as. So, but I do encourage my clerks to get involved in tennis while they're here because, Atlanta is definitely a big tennis city. I think the weather helps. It's maybe not as much as Bradenton, but we have a really nice long spring season and a nice long fall season. I have friends from Connecticut told me there were indoor tennis courts. I didn't even know that that was a thing that existed in the world. So I always encourage clerks, whether they played or not, but especially if they have, to get involved in tennis while they're here. Because again, I do think it's a great outlet.
Yeah, obviously, my whole life, I think it's the best sport you can imagine, and Atlanta does have a great tennis scene. Spent a good amount of time there with the used to have the Atlanta Open, a professional event, and I have a number of friends of mine who have played or coached at Georgia Tech. So I spent some time
Oh, that's great. That's a
in
lot of
downtown
fun.
Atlanta for
Where's
that
the, is the
reason.
Atlanta,
Yeah.
is the Atlanta Open at the same court every year? Does it move around?
So really sadly, they just sold it a couple years ago.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's yeah, I think it's now the Dallas Open, unfortunately.
Bummer. Oh,
Um,
well.
yeah, but there's a hot market for these tournaments, believe it or
Yes,
not,
yeah. Well,
in the
Atlanta's definitely a
US.
sports town, so there are plenty of other sports um, to come see here, including the World Cup. Part of the World Cup will be here this summer, so we're all
That's
excited about
true.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a good friend of mine who he's from Argentina. We went to college together, and he was maybe Argentina is able to play one of those games in Atlanta. He was looking at ticket prices, and they're already in like the thousands of dollars
Yeah,
for
I'm
up in
sure.
the
Yeah, big market
highest
up
bowl.
here.
Um, and talking maybe a little bit about professional tennis, do you follow the pros very much? Do you like watching, maybe even just like Wimbledon every year? Is there any Grand Slam that you'd like to go to or been to?
I mean, Wimbledon would be a lot of fun to go to just because it's such a classic, right? There's nothing like it. I tend not to turn on tennis, but if it's on, I always enjoy watching it. So if I'm ever with friends, especially in the summer at the lake or anything like that, and someone turns on tennis, I'll always end up watching it and getting pretty
Sure.
into it. But I never turn it on. I'm not kind of keeping track of the matches and turning it on myself. So, I guess probably because I didn't grow up watching tennis.
Yeah.
Um, I played a little bit, as I said, but I didn't really grow up watching it. And so I think a lot of those habits get set when you're young. We're definitely more of a football watching and baseball watching family here in Atlanta.
Got it. Yeah. Do you have any weigh in on the kind of like GOAT debate, Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, or Djokovic, some of any of the new guys?
It's hard because I don't think I know enough to give
Sure.
a good example. If I could choose someone to argue against or for, maybe that could be another way to try to win. But I think I'm probably not well positioned to do that right here. I do love.
Totally.
This is going to show you how little I'm able to follow. But I think my favorite player is Carlos Alcaraz from
Yeah.
Spain. I think he's great. He's a
Yeah.
lot of fun to watch. And I saw him when he was young, his first big win, so I follow him a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the new guys.
Yeah.
Definitely taking the has a chance to give the old guys the record books a run for their money. Um,
I'm always cheering for
so
that.
I want to turn to my tennis experience was playing, but I got to do I think the coolest part of my journey was in coaching. So I got to work with some professional players, and I got to go to all the Grand Slams and work with some guys who are top 50, top 40 in the world. And that was a different kind of challenge for me, right? So instead of playing, you're the one kind of watching and giving feedback. So I'm curious, like you as a boss in chambers, right? Like you have these young impressionable clerks or brilliant, come from these awesome schools, but you got to help them develop as lawyers, develop their writing. What's that kind of process like for you in
Yeah,
chambers?
that's a great question. This, like many of the things that I do, is something that I learned from clerking for Justice Kavanaugh, and he always had us do the first draft of an opinion, and that's what I have my clerks do it too. I think, no one's gonna, it's not like when you get to the firm, the partner is gonna write the brief and then kind of like tell you about it. And so I think it's great practice to kind of start with a draft. Of course, we talk about what it should say and why, and I have the clerk provide an outline on that basis, and then we go forward. But then after that, it's off to the races with approximately 4 million drafts back and forth. So I usually work in hard copy. So my handwriting can be somewhat mysterious, which I know that's a really special skill that my clerks learn. My husband makes a lot of fun of me for my bad handwriting. So it's pretty ironic that that's an important part of my work process. But for me, as an ancient person who was not raised reading things on screens, I feel like I can't really read it unless it's in hard copy. So constant drafts going back and forth. And then, especially if there are a lot of edits, as there always are at the beginning, we'll always sit down and kind of go through the changes, A, so that they can know what they are given the handwriting situation, and B, sometimes there are things I want to explain, reasons, why this approach or that approach, why this word or that word, why it's better to say it this way or that way. And so I think it's a lot of work, frankly, to go back and forth, but it also helps people really grow. Everyone's a great writer when they get to me, but I really want them to be an outstanding writer by the time they leave. And it's a lot of fun to see. I've had clerks who have had law review articles published, kind of like they had finished before they started the clerkship, and then it was, going through the publication process. And they said, like, oh, like now I read it, I wish I'd had like, these writing ideas. And I said, no, it's great already. But the point is, I think it's a crucial part of my job to train my law clerks really well and help them improve their writing. So that's a pretty key part.
Yeah, I'm going through that process now. My note is coming around for publication in the spring, and it's starting to do edits on it. You wrote this like a year ago almost, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I guess I was a 2L in law school, but
Yeah,
it's
you've
like
probably
I
grown
was a
so much
terrible
in the
writer
last
back then.
year.
What?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure it's
What
good.
was I doing?
It wouldn't have gotten there if it weren't, but it's good that you
What
can
was I
see room
doing?
for improvement.
Yeah, and it is actually it is about a tennis issue. It's writing about like labor law
Oh,
in
interesting.
professional tennis.
Hmm.
So
Hot topics. Make sure you send the article.
yeah, yeah. I'll shoot you an email. So the other kind of thing I think you mentioned this earlier. Tennis kind of demands this like immediate composure and resilience
Mhm.
after matches. the courtroom equivalent to that, maybe maintaining case to case, maintaining relationships with partners, or lawyers who are before your court. What about, like, for you as a judge, like handling stress, criticism, or just like the demanding workloads, not just from people in the court, but outside, and kind of feeling those pressures, and dealing with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important again to not get too caught up in what people are saying, whether it's to you or not, or looking backwards. And I think having hobbies like tennis is helpful. Also, having kids who do not care at all that you're a judge or what your job is, it makes you realize that it's a job. It's not all there is to life. And so I think that that can be really helpful in being able to look forward. And you again, you're going to be doing this for a long time. That's the idea of it. And so I think it's important to not get too stuck in what's happened before, because we're all learning. No one, I'd be surprised if any judge said they thought the same about something 20 years into their job as they did 2 years into their job. So, we all have different perspectives and kind of takeaways. And I think that's important to recognize. But, cheating, the only time my oral argument style is usually I try to, I ask things that I really want to know. And I don't particularly try to, you know, be mean or kind of harass the lawyer, unless I think they're not being honest with the court, and then that can that can make me, kind of put on a little bit of a tougher face. And boy, does it make me mad if people are being unclear about the lines in tennis. You hit one, it goes in, and they say out, and but like I've seen friends lose matches because they get so irritated about that. So you really do have to try to let even that go. So
Yeah,
fairness,
yeah.
fairness is huge for me, but I'm not gonna. I try my best not to make myself lose because I get so caught up in what I think the other person is doing wrong.
Yeah, you've never had a blow up or a broken racket because of a bad line call or anything.
No, not my style, but I don't know. Maybe my Russian friend.
We gotta get her on for the
Yeah, she'd be
next
a
one.
lot of fun. She'd be a lot of fun.
It's kind of touched on my next question, actually, which is, tennis kind of embrace it, right? If you're playing a match, I'm assuming most of these Alta League matches don't have umpires sitting there
Right,
policing the lines all the time. So we have, it's tennis has this kind of self-enforced tradition of sportsmanship, and what they call, the code, right?
right.
And to some extent, there's something similar in the law, right? I mean, certainly, if it gets caught by the court, there can be sanctions and stuff like that. But how do you think that kind of just like internalized honor and kind of like civility apply to the bar, and chambers culture in general?
Yeah, I think it's crucial, honestly, in both, because I mean, if you had to have refs in order to make or what are they called in tennis? Are they refs? Are they umps? What are they?
Umpires, yeah,
Umpires,
yeah,
yeah, thanks.
umpires,
See,
yeah.
as we've said, I'm a casual player. If you had to have umpires in order to have everyone follow the rules, then a league like Alta would not last very long, because no one is interested in, first of all, you couldn't find enough probably. And second of all, no one would probably be interested in paying enough to have, umps at every one of these games. And so it really just truly having this league makes it requires a code of honor and honesty, and understanding what we're here for, which is not to try to, cheat our way to a win on a Sunday afternoon recreational tennis match. But I think too, in the law, if things get bad enough, there are Rule 11 sanctions or show cause orders, or, any number of formal sanctions. But if if we relied on formal sanctions to make sure that lawyers were acting honorably and, kind of remembering that they're all officers of the court, then that too would be a losing battle, honestly. So I think that the code of honor and the code of decency in the law is really important too. We're all serving, I think, the Constitution and the rule of law in different roles. And I think it's crucial for every lawyer to remember that the outcome in a particular case or a particular motion is not the only thing that matters. It's really important to not only be true to who you are and your values, but be true to the rule of law.
Yeah, it's a great message. So I think I have a couple. We'll do a couple like quick rapid fire questions here, and then I'll turn over to the crowd Q&A. So if you haven't gotten your question yet, send it in now. Got couple more minutes. Some kind of quick, easy questions here. Judge Grant, the best tennis snack.
Well, if I'm bringing it bananas, because that's the easiest, but there are some friends who make some pretty delicious cookies, a little treat. Another friend also makes an adult slushie that she likes to bring. That's only for after the match, clearly.
What's good mixed in there?
Yeah.
I, I may or may not have one or two times before a really big match, just a small little something to kill the nerves a
To
little
relax
bit.
a little bit. One, I did
Yeah,
see a funny, one of my tennis teammates sent a funny way to freak out your opponents is to put your water in a big cleaned out handle of liquor and just drink that on the sideline. So no one has quite tried that, but it would be a pretty interesting approach just to see what happened,
yeah.
the other team's
Uh,
reaction.
Yeah, true story. There was I think a lot of players do this on sometimes in moments, but a very good friend of mine was playing a match at a big pro tournament. They're deep in the third set and they've been playing for 3 hours. His opponent, this British gentleman, Marcus Willis, it's like 5-all in the third. Whips out a Snickers bar and an RC cola
No
and just
way.
like chugs it, just like you need that 120 grams of sugar real quick
I mean, I guess
just to push
so.
to the finish line,
Huh.
so in the right moment.
Maybe I'll try that next time.
Uh, yeah. Next question. What do you think about tie breaks? Thrilling, exhilarating moment, or super
I
stressful,
think
but would rather
I
not be
think
there?
I think thrilling. I love it because it's short, and usually, I just want to win and get out. So I love a tiebreak.
Yeah. You have a preference for topspin shots or slice?
I think a slice because at my particular level, a slice is just a killer shot. And topspin people have some hope of hitting back, but if you get the right slice, you just win the point. So
Yeah, that'll do damage. It's I imagine it's a fun feeling. It bounces and then moves the other way, and they're just standing there like,
amazing. Yeah.
what's going on? Song in your head, either on match point or right before you start the match.
That's really funny. There are often a lot of songs. My usual partner is hilarious, and she always has a lot of ideas. One that often comes to mind is "My House" by Flo Rida, which is a good one to
Okay.
do.
Yeah,
It's situational. There could be a different one for a different situation.
totally. And then last one from me. If you could change one rule of tennis, what would you be if there's one?
Oh, that's a good one. I would probably just have one serve, all or
Okay.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like that answer. I'm in general something of a traditionalist when it comes to the sport, right? It's been a certain way for a long time. It seems like it's doing a good job. But the game has evolved, like especially at the high level, like the serve has really become a dominant thing on the men's side of the game, especially. I think it'd be interesting to just have one.
Right, because then if you can't, maybe you can't give it your absolute all because you have to make sure it goes in to kind of make
Totally. Yeah.
it.
Okay, I got the Q&As pulled up here, and I have a couple good ones.
So great.
First one is perhaps from a member of the Columbia Law School Federalist Society chapter. Jason asks, a local community brings you in. It's more of a hypothetical. A local community brings you in to solve a dispute over how to split the town's only tennis courts between tennis players and the growing local pickleball club. Do you think you'd be able to shed your personal views on each sport and adjudicate that matter fairly?
You know what? I thought he was gonna ask which one I would choose. I would choose tennis, but I do think I could choose. I do think that I could sort it out. There are a lot of interest, and that's interesting because that's a tough topic. I think in a lot of communities. I think there might be more night pickleball and day tennis would be one way to do it. Um,
Okay.
Pickleball seems pretty social sometimes, a little more low key, but maybe I'm just not playing with the right people. I know
Yeah.
pickleball is too, but yes, I think I could set aside my views. How about
Yeah.
you?
Have you? I don't know. The tennis is, or excuse me, pickleball is. I mean, I'm sure it's big in Atlanta, but it's crazy big in New York these days.
Mm,
Yeah, I think probably because like I mean, tennis is big here, but it's hard and it's expensive to get on courts.
right.
Um, so
Although
it's
I
easy
know
to
more
make.
people who have like popped a muscle playing pickleball than it seems like it looks very innocent, but it seems pretty dangerous to me. So, viewers, if you're thinking about tennis or pickleball, I say go for tennis.
Yeah,
Much
a little bit
safer.
of a little bit of a steeper learning curve, but I like anything, nothing worth doing is easy, you know.
Absolutely.
Another question from an anonymous attendee. Do you think that tennis umpires should be able to redefine the boundaries of the tennis court during matches based on evolving standards of decency? Perhaps a
Short
tongue-in-cheek
answer,
reference here.
no.
No living tennisism.
No,
Um,
no living tennis.
Another question here. So going back to the conversation on play styles, what do you think about so-called pushers in tennis? Players who just hit long, high shots and wait for you to make a mistake.
There's a lot of it. So I guess the key is just to not make a mistake. If you by long high shots, are they? I guess that's the lob. Is that what you think that's referring to?
Yeah, I think there's different ways to go about it. I think even people who just like go and slice every shot back in play, or
Oh, I
maybe
see.
aren't
I
aren't
see what you mean.
aren't
Yeah,
aren't trying to hit winners.
I see what you mean. Yeah, sometimes that's what I try to do if you notice the other team is making mistakes. So I can't criticize too much.
Yeah, I have a
You
lot of
gotta win however you can win.
totally. I have a lot of respect for whenever someone says, "Oh, that guy's just a pusher." I'm like, "Oh, so he makes every shot and like makes you earn every point?
Yeah,
What a bad
terrible.
player, you know?" He might he must be. Um, I think that's we're at the end of the Q&A. So I was just gonna ask you one final question, Judge, and that's what's just one lesson from tennis that you've taken away, maybe discipline, resilience, strategy, or something else
We talked a
that
lot
you
about.
would,
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
yeah, just that you'd offer law students, beginning their careers or in general.
Yeah, yeah. We've talked a lot about resilience, so I won't retread that. But I think discipline for sure. Like I said, I can really tell when I've been, when I had the lessons in addition to the practices, when I'm really, trying my best, working hard, repetitive, making all the practices right. I can definitely tell a huge difference in my game. So I think, you can be a naturally good tennis player, a naturally good law student or lawyer, but tennis and the law both, you're not going to get the results you're looking for unless you're really putting the work in. So it's important to do it, and you'll be glad at the end when you see that final work product that whether it's a winning match or a great serve or a great brief.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, for all the law students, right? Congrats to everyone who passed exams for this year.
Absolutely, yeah. For anybody who's still working on papers, I'm in that boat with you. But all right, I'll close out there. I mean, let me check one last time if any last questions came in. Judge Grant, you did get a compliment on your Chick-fil-A
I think
sweatshirt hoodie.
always have to rep the Chick-fil-A for
Yeah,
sure. Company.
what's the story? I just at Atlanta Chick-fil-A Stadium.
Well,
What's
no,
the
so
story
I
behind the
mean,
hoodie?
well, that's certainly true, but my husband actually started working there a couple years ago in their corporate office, so
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
pretty
Okay.
exciting family. We eat there probably, 3 times a day approximately, and now my husband works there, so with kids in
Yeah.
Atlanta, that's the only spot. So, we're big fans of the company, great people, and great restaurants.
That's awesome. Okay. So we'll close out there. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Hope you and your families have a Merry Christmas and any other holidays you celebrate. And please stay tuned for forthcoming announcements about more SOC sidebar events that we'll have in the spring. Judge Grant, thanks so much for joining me tonight. Appreciate your time and everybody else.
Thanks a lot, really appreciate it. Great to talk to you.